While we fight tired eyes from You are now tuned in to the Cosmic Convos Podcast, your number one source for accurate, relevant, and thought-provoking astrological conversations in the podcast nation. The place where stars and minds align.
Peace, you're now tuned into the Cosmic Convos Podcast. I'm your humble host, Herut, and I got my good brother here, Brother Ra. How you doing?
Oh, brother, glad to be back for season 4, brother. How about yourself?
Hey, man, same thing here, man. You know, a lot has transpired, since then, man. But yeah, man, I'm just glad to, be here, man, and be able to, build with you, my brother, and, take this thing to the next level.
Hey, man, I'm ready. Let's get it done.
Indeed. But before we get too far, I'm going to remind you all to make sure you like and subscribe to this channel. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at Cosmic Convo. That's CosmicConvo. That's on Instagram. And honestly, from there, you can get to everything or whatnot. You can follow pushitforward.com. This episode is brought to you by Push It Forward Media Group and Samuels Astrology. And, you can find Push It Forward on Instagram at PUSHITFWD on Instagram. And from there, you can get to all of our different links and different things like that. Brother Ra, how can the people get a hold of you?
You can hit me up a couple of ways, one of which is Facebook. You can hit me up via Shechem Ra, via FB, or you can hit me up Shechem Ra via IG. If that doesn't work for you, hit me up via astrology@gmail.com. One of those would definitely get a hold of me.
Indeed. So, so we're here. We're back. Season 4, episode 1, season premiere, and overall we're at episode 76. So big up to us, man. Indeed, man. It's a blessing, man. I mean, we sat there and I looked at it and I'm like, really, you could literally binge watch our content for about 90 hours straight right now. So I think that's a good accomplishment, man.
I'm gonna say so, man. And I know some people that do. They say they do their their daily chores, or they're running their errands, and they put us on and they just let us rip. So definitely got a lot of material to just hang on, hang back and enjoy.
Indeed. So we took a little break, man, got a couple things together and stuff like that. If you don't know, I dropped my second short film, The Gentle. That's been performing pretty well. A lot of, good feedback on that right there. Let me go ahead and give it. Or whatnot. So, definitely stay tuned to what we're doing over at Ninth Lord Films, man. We got more coming on with that and stuff like that, man. And Ra's been, busy to the top of his ears with all the good consultations and different things like that, that he's giving. So let's big up him real quick. Indeed. So we got a lot of good things scheduled for you all this season. Or whatnot, because we're going to go ahead and complete and get to that 100 episode mark by the end of this season. So that's a big milestone for us. So, definitely stay tuned and make sure you share this with your peoples and stuff like that. I'm excited about getting into this next one, man. But before I even get there, Rod, you got anything you want to share with the people, man, before we go too far?
Just I appreciate all of the patrons. I appreciate all of our fans for sticking with us, for enduring through the kind of ups and downs we have, because we do this, on the side. We do this because we love knowledge, we love astrology, and we have lives as brother just stated. He's creating movies and doing shorts and interviews and all kind of stuff. Plus, holding down the family, paying bills. So for us to do this, it takes time out of our day, out of our lives, but we love it. So we're here and we continue to be here. So we just want to say I just want to say thank you for all the people that are supporting.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I share that sentiment as well. Speaking of interviews, I did do an interview on one of my good brothers' podcasts, Fitness Corner podcast. So definitely go check him out. You can find that on all platforms, Fitness Corner podcast. And I think the episode is called The Gentle, so you can check that out there. And I also did an interview with a platform called Good Hit Hood Films. Check them out, man. They highlight pretty much almost all the black, short films out there and filmmakers out there, man. So they got an excellent platform. I did an interview with them, so definitely go check them out as well, or whatnot, man. So big up to them brothers, man, or whatnot. But we usually start the seasons off, with doing the astrological ages, and we're going to continue to do that. But it's just some things happening in current events that we just can't ignore or whatnot. And I would say that, in this podcast, we do, we have covered very, very, very high level astrological fundamentals and stuff like that. And I would say this is a high level astrological fundamental area that we're going to cover, utilizing, a technique, called, using the Chandra Lagna, which is pretty much analyzing the chart, utilizing the moon placement as the ascendant. And oftentimes this is a method that's employed when you don't necessarily have a good time on a person or yourself or different things like that. But even when you do have an excellent time, looking at your chart from the Chandra Lagna or the moon, I mean, it gives you a whole different perspective as well. A lot of astrologers will say that, your analysis of a chart is not complete until you've looked at it from both perspectives, amongst others. And I would say that, the particular individual that we're covering right now, somebody that I came across maybe a little earlier this year, or no, not this year, last year, and stuff like that. And I was, I say first thing, I was highly impressed with his production value for sure, or whatnot. And then I start really digging into his content and start checking out and seeing what he's, kind of been, talking about. And then it's just been amazing just to see like this crazy rise, in a very short time. I know, brother's been doing this thing for a while, but I've just seen his channel just blow like crazy within the past few months. And, from an astrological perspective, you have to be curious. Like, all right, what's going on here? What's what's the method to the madness?
What are the mechanisms at work, right?
Indeed. So, if you didn't see the cover art, or you're not sure who we're talking about, we're talking about the brother Kevin Samuels, who is, really just taking his platform to a whole nother level this year. So we're going to go and explore and just kind of see what's the method. What's the method to the madness? What's going on? And this is insight. It's insight for us. It's also insight for everybody else who has different things going on, and kind of see what type of things you see in the chart that could probably, contribute, to success in, this new digital era and all the different things that we're seeing right now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, big ups to Kevin. Definitely doing your thing. Can't take that away from any man that's, paid his dues, right? That's
Yeah.
really gone through the process of creating something from nothing. And definitely, hats off to the brother. He's made his mark and seems to be here and is going to stay here for a while. So let's get into some things about Kevin and explore his dynamics. The thing is, again, we don't have a birth time, so this is all based on the moon, the placement of the moon. And as my good brother said here, we don't look at a chart without looking at the placements from the moon. And the real reason is because the moon just holds a very prominent position in astrology in that it's one of the luminaries, right? It's one of the basic personal planets that makes you more you than any other of the placements, other than the
Yeah.
ascendant and other than the sun. So, what we do, right, is try to see if that moon is going to change, right, from midnight to midnight. And Kevin's moon doesn't change from Sagittarius based on the data that we have. Now, the date of birth I have is March 28th, 1969. I'm sorry, no, excuse me, March 12th,
Yeah.
1969, right? March 12th, 1969. And so, people say, how'd you get this, right? Look, it doesn't take much to just, when you're watching an individual over a period of time, you hear certain things as an astrologer and as a diviner. I listen for those particular key points because those give me the keys to know who I'm dealing with, right?
Yeah.
And what those, parameters are and how far not a person will go. So, keying in, he had a birthday, right? He mentioned his birthday, right? And of course, the years of birth are pretty much public. So, voila, we have a nice date to go to choose or to go from. So as you can see, right, the moon is in Sag, and it's almost uncanny the way these things work when you're really using sidereal astrology. I have to make that preface.
Yeah.
Because when you're using tropical, then it's going to do something different, right? So this is based on sidereal placements, and if you don't know how to gather your sidereal placements from a chart, the easiest thing is just to subtract 24 degrees from every placement, and you'll have your sidereal chart. So we can see Brother Kevin in his role, right, very well through what we have unfolded in his chart. And the moon stays in Sagittarius from midnight to midnight. So we know he is a Sagittarius moon, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things that it does, because the moon is what brings us emotional fulfillment, it brings emotional fulfillment when he is in that position of preaching or teaching. Right? That's what the moon in Sag loves to do. It does it naturally. It flows with it. It embodies it. And so it can be, someone that is considered a knower or someone that is knowledgeable. Can be someone that has some emotional challenges when it comes to dealing with stepping outside of the realm of judgment. And people have these placements all over the world. This is not it's not exclusive. It's not exclusive to Kevin, of course, but it just makes him someone that is definitely about logical argumentation. Right? Seriously,
Indeed.
so. um,
It's an understatement.
Understatement, right? Moon and Sag creates the need to dialogue and to build through logical argumentation, right? And you can see his whole setup is from a logical perspective. They do become extremely, they can be mathematically gifted. And so I remember, if I hear correctly, and I'm sure my brother here can corroborate, we discussed it a little earlier, he's actually an engineer by trade or by profession or by, according to him, by his educational pursuits, right?
Yeah.
And so Moon and Sag can definitely, what can I say?
Think a chemical engineer, or
Chemical
I think,
engineer, right?
yep.
Right. One of the things that the Moon and Sag can do is when you look in the mirror, they see someone that's a preceptor or a teacher, right? Someone that really is there to help the people on a lower level raise up, right? It's strange that in the beginning of life, it can kind of create someone that's more or less an ideologue, right? And as time matures with experience, right, and with self-reflection, they do become wise, right? He's bringing things from that wisdom-like perspective, right? We're going to get in deeper into what the mechanics are behind that, but you can see that this man is trying to advise many people to raise themselves up from a lower level to a higher level, and that's what Moon and Sag does very well.
Yeah.
Right. The other thing that it does is that it can create a very imbalanced first marriage, right? Because the way we look at things is that the seventh placement or the seventh house from the moon, that's why the moon is so important, because it reveals so many different things. The seventh house from the moon reveals a lot about who we're attracted to initially in regards to our first marriage. And it's Gemini that's in opposition to the moon. So that means that the first wife, typically can be more argumentative, more expressive, right? More built on communications. And so the first marriage many times will dissolve with Moon and Sag. And for those reasons of argumentation and the same process of logical argumentation, meaning that there's a dialogue that seems to never be resolved when the back and forth ensues, right? And many people go through divorces, and just because Moon is in Sag doesn't mean that every single placement like that is going to yield a divorce. But it's usually likely that the ending of the marriage, especially the first one, is through a difference of in unreconcilable differences or not being able to see eye to eye type deal.
Yeah.
The other thing that creates is dogmatic idealism, right? And so in that dogmatic idealism, a person can be very staunch about their belief system. Right? Remember, Sag is what you believe. And the moon, right, is that heartfelt energy. So the person is extremely heartfelt, extremely adamant about their positions. And rightfully so, because moon is in a fire sign. So, that's how he thinks. For all intents and purposes, right? This man is here to try to really uplift, from his perspective, those people that are lacking in information and knowledge. So, I see where he's coming from. That's why, in astrology, we want to see where you're coming from. What's your angle? What's the motive? And you can see this is Kevin.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would you say? What would you say about that, my brother? that moon and Sag dealing those energetic makeups.
Yeah, I got a lot of moon and Sag people in my life, and it's a very idealistic type of disposition. I mean, right or wrong, whatever it is, whatever the ideas that's floating around in their head, whatever philosophy they have, they pretty much live on that. You know what I'm
They do.
saying?
You're right. They live on that. It's a sustenance to them.
Yeah.
You're right, man. You're right.
Hmm.
You're right. Definitely. I know your situation, right? So
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying. I know you get a good dose of it, right? And you can see that, um, you know, when they take something to heart as far as knowledge, information, it takes a life of its own,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. The funny thing, I tell you the truth. I mean, it's not the same, but we do have some. And I'm not saying I'm him. We have some key differences, but we have a lot of similarities in the chart. You know, Sun, Mercury conjunction, Saturn, Venus, Rahu, and Rahu
Mm,
and Pisces K2 and Virgo and Uttara Falguni.
right, right,
Yeah,
right. You do. You
yeah.
do.
So it's interesting.
Interesting. That is. That's a trip.
Yeah,
So
and whatnot.
um, and that moon and fire, creates that passion for things.
Yep.
That energy behind what you feel. It's potent. So I understand. Man, I understand. And this
Like
gives you. Go ahead.
one thing, I mean, because I hear a lot of people, they talk about, like, when they talk about the fire signs, and when they get to Sag, they like Sag is a warrior, but like Sag is a warrior, but it's a philosophical warrior.
It
You know
is.
what I'm saying? It's a warrior. It's a warrior of ideas and different things
Yes.
like that. You know what I mean? And I see that, like, with a lot of people I interact with, and just you know what I mean. Even when you break it down to, like, America doesn't have moon and Sag, but I mean it's Sag. It's a idealistic type of nation.
It
You
is.
know, it's really
It's a
based
nation of
on that.
ideas.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. Absolutely. That is definitely 100% correct. And so that Sagittarian kind of output, right, with the emotions, right? That's not someone you want to argue with, right? Because it's not gonna change their mind, right?
Yeah.
Their mind is changed by the due diligence, the research, and the insights that they gain through their own right search and seeking of knowledge and wisdom. But the moment you step forward and create a me against you, you're never going to change the person's mind. Right?
Oh,
It's
facts, as they
so
say.
so so when you and those of you that are listening to this and watching this, Kevin, if you watch, right, we understand, right? You mean well. The Sagittarians have a really it's ruled by Jupiter. You must
Yeah.
keep this in mind. So the intentions are noble, right? The intentions are noble. The intentions are well meant. How they come out, how they're filtered, whole different process. But the intention is to help, right? And so that's where we really need to key in on is this individual is here to try to uplift or to raise up individuals.
Yeah.
So, big ups and hats off in that regard. Now, let's get deeper, right? Because it's just the moon and how it's positioned. Again, we don't have the time, so we don't know exactly what house it's in and so forth. That will change a whole lot of that adds a whole lot of context. But without that, still alone, that moon in Sag holds true.
Yeah.
The next piece that we look at, we're going to examine with Mr. Samuels here is his sun sign. And of course, most of you are very familiar with sun signs because in the West, that's what you've been trained or brought up to look towards first. And his sun is in Aquarius at 28 degrees. And this puts it in a very peculiar nakshatra called Purva Bhadrapada.
Oh yeah.
Purva Bhadrapada is one of the nakshatras that literally has two faces. Doesn't mean they're two faced. Don't take it that way, right?
Yeah.
What it means is that they have a side that they show you and a side you'll never see, right? Ever. Right? And that's why he will tell you, right, that you won't find a lot of dirt about me because Purva Bhadrapada the sun, meaning the core of the individual, is internal mandate, right? The driving aspect of his being, right, is about keeping things separate, public life and private life.
Yeah.
So, you'll never, and if you do, and I've seen people find different little pieces of the puzzle, that's probably about as much as we're going to get with regards to how his backdrop really is, because they know how to keep face.
Yeah.
Very, very well. I mean, Sun Purvapad Rapada is the type of energy that you could be a preacher by day, right? And something else completely different by night. So they have this ability to not mask, but protect, right? That inner aspect of their inner world, and rightfully so, because we live in a society that is extremely nosy and, right, extremely persistently invasive.
Yeah.
So, he's going to fight to keep that under wraps. But the sun in Aquarius does a few other things as well. It definitely gives him a very intellectual approach to life. Very scientifically minded. In fact, going back to his career, and the sun is a planet that can indicate career many times. And that sun is in Aquarius, engineering would definitely fit right in line with what that Aquarian energy produces.
Yeah.
Sun in Aquarius knows a lot of people. They're very well connected, right? They can be considered a little different. So when you go back and look at some of his older pictures, right, and you see Kevin, right, he looks a little. I mean, I'm not saying, but his style, right,
Yeah.
is not run of the mill.
Yeah. Got the bow tie,
Exactly.
the whole different. Yeah.
Definitely. See what I'm saying? So, this is how you unpack a person when you really begin to understand how these energies unfold and work. So, the other thing is that Sun in Aquarius is ruled by Saturn. So, it
Yeah.
is a serious energy. Right? And so, he's going to come from his core with a very serious, serious undertow. It's not someone that is here to play. None of his energies are set up to play at all. It's not somebody you play with.
It's his Atmakaka.
It is, provided the moon is positioned right, because the moon
Where it's
is his
at. Yeah.
Atma, right?
Yeah.
But extracting the moon from the position, right? Sun is his Atma Karaka,
Right.
because it's at the latest degrees of the sign, 28 degrees. So the moon would have to be 29 degrees, right, for that to happen. So
Yeah.
good chance Sun is his Atma Karaka.
Yeah.
And that means his soul lesson, right, is here to lead. He's here to lead, right? Extracting Aquarius. When the sun becomes your Atma Karaka, that's the planet of leadership. That's the planet of being able to literally shine light on others. And that's what he's doing. Right? He's taking his own type of leadership and running with it.
Yeah.
The other thing is he's actually built to create networks for people. Aquarius is a sign of networking, of interactions, of interconnections. And so this man does have a lot of people that he knows. Not just because of his fame, but just because of the design of who he is. He likes to connect with different types of people from all walks of life. Right? That's what
Yeah.
Sun in Aquarius is designed to do. It's a very altruistic sign. Right? So seeing, and another thing that they do now, Sun in Aquarius also helps the downtrodden. They like to help the lower man. Even though I know a lot of it, he says high value, high value, high value, right? But the reality is that he's telling people on a lower level about what it is to deal with something on that level. So
Yeah.
literally, Aquarius likes to deal with the downtrodden or the underdog. And he roots for the underdog. He pushes for the underdog. He was an underdog.
Yeah.
Right? And, he paid his dues. He climbed the ladder bit by bit. When you look at Kevin's first videos, he doesn't shine very much.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He's very much plain, I mean, it's that. In fact, it looks even to some degree corny, right? To
Mm-hmm.
some degree, but that persistence, that Aquarian persistence. That's one thing Aquarius is persistent. They don't give up, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Doggedly persistent because it's a fixed sign, and fixed signs don't give up. In fact, they take that as a challenge. When you challenge them, they take it as a challenge to finish the fight. So they stay in the trenches. They stay continuously doing it. I mean, the man has been pretty much on point since I've seen him, and my brother here is the one that really introduced me to him first. I got wind of him through him, but I really didn't pay much attention to him till a little bit later. But even since then, he's been doggedly persistent and dedicated to getting that information out to people.
Yeah.
Right. So the sun in Aquarius gets that's what it produces, is that type of energy. So now you're seeing Kevin right. You're seeing him for who he is in the totality of his being. And that way you really can understand where a person is coming from, not to judge, but to say, you know what, that's his perspective, that's his angle, that's his experience. And we all have them, right? His just happens to be one where, right, we're going to get into here in a minute, that relationships are fundamentally approached from a different perspective than what we're accustomed to in this day and age. So, you know, moving deeper into this moon, now we got the sun and we got the moon. Those are the luminaries. Those tell a lot about the personality disposition. But there's other things that also tell about the personality disposition, and that Mars, right? Mars is in Scorpio. And it's not
Yeah.
I don't see many charts with Mars and Scorpio. Just strangely so.
That's true.
You know, I don't know, brother. I just don't see them often. So when they come, I know it's usually something I can see right off because they're not common. And one of the things that it does is it, again, also makes them extremely persistent, right? This man has a lot of persistent energy. I mean, that Mars in Scorpio is relentless. You know, imagine Scorpio with its ruler there. Right? It is literally transformative. It takes something that is seemingly uncomfortable or unsavory and changes that thing into something beautiful. Right? It has the power of transformation because it holds the planet. The planet that rules it is inside of Scorpio. So definitely it makes them intense, extremely intense.
Yeah.
And the one thing about, with Mars and Scorpio, they're going to either be extremely passionate, extremely adamant, extremely forceful, or you get nothing at all. That's why you'll see him. He'll sit there and and then he comes out and right. That's the disposition. That's how that Mars and Scorpio is, because it's either all or nothing, hot or cold, right? Black or white. There's no gray area with this here. Mars and Scorpio does not have gray areas.
Yeah.
Very dramatic, right? But can produce great discipline. Can produce great discipline. Mars and Scorpio is extremely sexual. It has a high sexual drive, but it has discipline with it. It does have the ability to control it to a great degree,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you would think that they're everywhere with it. Nope, they're very contained with it. They're very directed with it. They're very intense with it, though. They're not like, where it's just everywhere, it spills out. No, they're very, very much delineated in how they approach sex and that
Yeah.
area of life.
Yeah.
Um, it does make them difficult to deal with at times. That is true. Mars and Scorpio can be very fixated about what it is that they feel. Right? When they feel something, they feel it deep, and it doesn't change overnight. It's not something that's going to just because someone else says something or presented new information, they're going to change. No, they're going to fight through whatever it is that they have to change through. At the other end, right after the fight is over, after that transformative exchange has happened, then they can see things. But they have to do that through repeated experiences, and usually not something that they're going to do in public, because that Mars and Scorpio makes them also again private.
Yeah.
So, definitely seeing him unfold here, right? Seeing him unpack, right? The intensity, the drive, the dedication, the persistence, right? The intellectual disposition, all of this is him. The preachy behavior, right? All Kevin, all written in the heavens. So when we talk about people and you try to, you're looking at angles to try to, tear somebody down, do this for everybody. You can do this for pretty much anybody. See where they're coming from.
Yeah.
See what their angle is before you make or pass judgment, because you may not understand that the person means well. They have good intentions.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I mean, you take that in the context of just the world in general and stuff like that. I mean, we live in a world where people are not really looking for that type of context from certain people. You know what I mean? They have something that they're trying to push, and it don't matter. So a lot of
Right.
that's
You're right.
lost.
Once they have it locked in, yeah, then yeah, you're right. You're right. So this is a lot of what makes Kevin Kevin. Right. Of course, the experiences and the things that I'm not going to divulge those things, right? I'm not going to
Hmm.
tell all of his business relationship with his mother and things like that. Is really none of our concern. My concern is really to show that what you're seeing is witnessable in the heavens based on the date of birth, based on when and where that person comes into this world, how they come into this world. You can see it in the chart. As above, so below. Right? So the next kind of area I want to talk about here is really relationships. We haven't really talked about much about relationships, and that's his main theme. That's his go-to as far as his product and his get up. So many people wonder why, a person would be the way they are. That wonder why he would be the way he is about marriage. Well, as you can see, or you should be able to see, right? Venus is in Aries. Now, Venus is at about 2 degrees Aries. Saturn is in Aries as well. It's at 0 degrees Aries. So there's about 2 degrees between the two. Maybe a degree and some change, really, to be honest. That is a very tight conjunction where Venus is extremely close to the planet that rules death. When I say death, I don't want to take it to that level, that extreme, but we takes it deathly serious.
Yeah.
Right? Anytime you have Venus with Saturn, there's a few things that you want to keep in mind about what happens with the outcome. For one, they're extremely focused, right, on responsibility in relationships. That's the main theme that they bring. Responsibility in relationships. That is every time that man opens his mouth, that is the catch. Whether it be said in a different way, that's the hook, right? That he presents as the end all be all for having a long term commitment. That it's not about love, conjugal love. It's not about affection, right? It's not about those things that we consider um, uh, temporary, right?
Hmm.
In unions, it's more about the long term, the long haul, the long term perspective as far as relationships are concerned. And Saturn is the planet that deals in things that are long term.
Yeah.
Saturn is serious. So this person is going to come serious about marriage, about committed unions. The other thing is it's extremely realistic, right? When it comes to being with the opposite sex, realism is the order of the day, not how they made you feel 10 years ago, not how they bought you the dress and you went out and took pictures. None of those things. How you take care of the bills. Do you wash and clean clothes? Can you fold clothes? Do you know how to organize a home? Do you know how to properly list out and shop and do the things that are ordered and duty bound in order to keep a marriage going,
Yeah.
to keep a home? That is where his mindset is. That's where he's built. That's how he's constructed. They will not change. Not going to change the individual's mind about being oriented towards love in unions. That's not how he thinks. That's not how he's built. That Saturn conjunct Venus within 2 degrees is an intense conjunction. Extremely intense. And so, I mean, if you nudged it over a degree, they'd be sitting literally right on top of one another in the night sky.
Yeah.
Right. The planet of duty, right? Of frugality, right? That is how he's going to approach any type of committed union. It's not about play. It's not about how I can make you feel. It's about what are you willing to do? What are you willing to sacrifice to make this relationship work? And old traditional values is what Saturn is about. That old time religion, as they say. Doing things traditionally, doing things as they were done back in the day. That's what Saturn is all about. The nostalgia of another time when things were the better, or the golden age. So, looking at relationships, this world that we live in, to him, right, is upside down, because that is not what the conversation is for most people. Most people don't meet each other and say, hey, you know what, how's your 401k? Do you have a retirement plan? What is your what is your year plan, 5-year, 10-year plan, right? Most people don't operate on those paradigms when they approach relationships, and they
Yeah.
probably should.
Yeah.
Saturn and Venus, remember, it's a strange relationship because they're friends.
Yeah.
Right? They are friends in the system of astrology that we practice. Saturn and Venus are friends, and rightfully so, because Libra, which is ruled by Venus, exalts Saturn. And it means that in relationships, Saturn is the order of the day.
Yeah, it is.
Love fades, right? It does. Love can last, but so long. And I don't want you to think that I'm agreeing with Kevin completely. There is a place for certain things in relationships, such as conjugal interactions, affection, love. I'm not of his purview, but I'm here to help you understand that where he is coming from is one in which that relationships are about making the community better. It's about the family unit and what that family unit can do for the community. There used to be, back in the day, right? And I'm pretty sure you can attest to this, my good brother. There were families that were around in the neighborhood that were like anchor families. Like, they've been around in the neighborhood for years. Big Mama, and them was married, Big Mama. They have like a whole village and tribe of people. Right?
I mean, just the concept of, this was very common when I was coming up, especially back in Ohio. It'd be like, oh, those are the Charles.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And it was a whole image. Yeah, it was a whole image that came with that.
Right. What happened to that? Right.
Yeah, it's gone.
It's falling, dissipating, right? It's dissolving. And so I'm with Kevin in that regard. Bring some of that where we are married for the purposes of building and constructing something greater than ourselves, not just sitting back eating bonbons and popcorn and enjoying each other's company.
Yeah.
Right? Which there's nothing wrong with that at times. Everything has a place and a time, but we put too much emphasis on the wrong things, right? We put too much emphasis on the look. We put too much emphasis on the trinkets and the things that come with being with someone versus the work that is required to really make something last.
Exactly.
I can't remember the fella's name.
Excuse
Help
me.
me out, brother. He's Indian guru, Sadhguru, right?
Yeah.
I was watching one of his lectures, kind of doing some other stuff, and Ben had him in the background, and he said something that was very profound. I don't agree with everything Sadhguru says, but a lot of information he produces is pretty intelligible and reasonable. He says, "Don't approach a marriage unless you're willing to sacrifice 20 years of your life." That is pretty accurate.
Oh yeah.
If you've been in a long-term committed relationship, you know that after the first 7 years, you're going to be tested,
Mm-hmm.
right? And Saturn, planet that is conjunct Venus, right, tests whatever it is that you have under his gaze or under his control. So if you're dealing with relationships, every 7 years, you're going to have a major catharsis or a major reorientation in your committed relationship. That is how you know you're married. Right? Because you have had to change and grow and develop beyond your comfort zone. Right?
Yeah.
Saturn is not a planet of comfort. It's a planet of hard work, effort, sacrifice, long-term endurance. Right? Now, I'm not saying that this man had the gift to stay in a long-term committed marriage. That's not it. I'm saying the approach to marriage, though, is one of which that is oriented around being forcibly positioned to make it work. And sometimes you can try so hard, it does crack the relationship because you're trying so hard, things can still fall apart. But again, this is some of the things that we have gotten away from in being in a committed relationship. We are not in the times when we're in the 50s, 40s and 30s where we did have to be together. Right? We married more for survival. We married more for the outcome
I think. I
versus the
think.
intimacy.
Yeah. And this is one thing he brings up a lot is, I mean, we live almost in like an illusionary time because it's we still need each other for survival to a certain degree, but we live in a world that gives off the illusion of not because of just all the
We
different
do, and
advancements and different things like that. So it makes you, it gives you the illusion that you don't need these particular things, too comfortable
yeah,
with the
and I mean,
comforts.
we this world has created a false narrative,
Yeah.
right? When it comes to life,
Yeah.
not just relationship, which is a bubble unto itself, which has created, it has a whole nother world that has fallen apart, but just
Mm-hmm.
life,
Yeah.
dealing with normal people on a day-to-day basis, interacting with people on a day-to-day basis. We are behind the camera most of the time,
Yeah.
right? So for us to perceive, and it does many injustices. One of the injustices it does is that we create these pictures around people of this grandiose type of vision for what we want people to be, and when they don't fit that bill, then they are villainized or
You
demonized.
cancel them. You cancel
And
them. You
count,
don't.
right, right. So yes,
Yeah.
very much so. We have a picture. We're gonna want to have a picture perfect view of somebody, and when they fall short of whatever prescriptive mark that we've made for them, then we make them the worst monster in the world.
Yeah.
When everybody behind a camera has a life, and everybody has idiosyncrasies and habits and proclivities that they produce that they hide from the rest of the world. That's just the nature of the world we live in.
Yep.
But
Yep.
when it comes to relationships, it's even more so, because I remember when I was a young man, I didn't see false lashes. If I did, it was on a different type of person, and I'm not going to say what type, but I didn't see false fake lashes. I didn't see fake hair. I didn't see a whole lot of makeup. I saw makeup, but not a whole lot. Right? I saw clothes that fit, right? That weren't, you know what I mean? If you saw the opposite, it was in an area that the person was doing something to attract that to themselves, right? And I don't want to say what type of profession, but you can use your brain to figure it out, right? Now that is the order of the day,
Yeah.
right? My daughter, we were out shopping. I'm a father, so I'm looking at jeans and you know shorts, and she's like tugging me, like, "No, daddy, I want a dress," and it just threw me, right? Because I have a little girl, so okay, oh, okay, darling, let me change modes, right? Because I have a child that is right very feminine. She's a girly girl, and it just
Mm-hmm.
sparked on me to say, you know what? Let me help. Let me help nurture that. Let me step out of daddy mode and be more into her mode to really help her grow into the young lady she's supposed to become. You know,
Yeah.
we're missing a lot of the feminine energy in our lives. And so when it comes to a vacuum, people like Kevin are just highlighting, like, hey, what I mean? What happened to the times when we looked at a woman and we could see who she was?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of us have you know, especially those of us who were, raised by single parents or whatever. You think about your mother, a lot of people got this vision of their mom, like mom ain't play. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? Like mom had a very tough disposition and stuff like that,
Mhm.
when I think about my
Exactly.
yeah, like my grandmother was the exact opposite. Like, you
Mhm.
know, I mean my it's funny because my dad, my uncles, they like never got whoopings. Because you know what I mean, like she just wasn't that type of woman. She was just, you know what I'm saying, she's just very sweet. Got married at 18, and her and my
But
grandfather
wait,
rolled it out. It
got
wasn't
married at
perfect.
18. But
Yeah.
got married at 18 though. And created a family.
Yeah. Yep.
That's unheard of now. 18 marriage? Oh, what's wrong with you? Right. So
Yeah.
we've got to get back to some of those fundamental values, some of those
Yeah.
traditional outlooks that protected and got us to where we are today. Not to say it should be completely just oblivious of anything other than relationships. I mean, other than duty, but let that be the order of the day, and let the other things be the decoration, the decoration, and the things that we use to make the relationship better instead of it being the reverse.
Yeah.
And that's where I agree with Kevin, right? That these things that we have when we meet each other, we should have an understanding that this is something that we're taking serious here. Right? We're not playing with each other. We're not going to just date. Right? We're going to see how deep we can go, how long we can go, how hard we can go, and let's make it happen. Now, the other placements that he has, and one of the things I also want to say is that with Venus conjunct Saturn, it also makes him hard nosed about obligations. So unless you come in with that and come in with really credentials and things that you can stand on, Kevin's always going to take the approach to try to bury you where you are, because that's just a hard nosed disposition that Saturn gives when it comes to women. And Venus in a man's chart is women, you must understand. So he is going to be a lot more stern in that regard. Now, there's other things that we have going on here. Venus is in Aries. Now, Venus in Aries is a position that um, creates intensity in love. Now, when I say love, and I know this man is saying it's not about love, it's not about love, not about love. But let's keep it real, right? And I love you, Kevin. But he hones in on, right, shape and figure, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Right. Now, every man has his type. This is true. Right? But health is a big important reason why Kevin addresses the weight of a woman. But for Kevin himself, he likes a female that's athletic. You see, your proclivities are told by the chart. What you like and what you find attractive is already written. His Venus is in Aries. Aries is athletic, competitive, right? Direct, fast. Not to say he likes fast women, but have you noticed how he talks to Tommy a little different than the others?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And Tommy's a fast woman, right? Right? So, right, Venus in Aries produces a man that is competitive in relationships, right? It is about competition. Not to say he competes with the mate, but the mate has to bring something to get something. Isn't this phenomenal? I mean, when I like, whoa, like this is deep. Venus in Aries produces an individual that takes love as war. There's battle in love. And
Yeah.
does this man do battle in
Oh
that
yeah.
regard? You see, this is the man's destiny. It's written. I know, Kevin, you know, may not believe in astrology. You say you're Christian. I get it. Right? But we can clearly see this is who you are. So Venus and Aries also doesn't beat around the bush when it comes to relationship. They can get married quick without any intrepidation. In fact, they deem being in a relationship about getting to the point of it, not tearing around, not playing, not wasting time. Right? And that's what he says. Within 3 to 6 months, you should be talking about marriage. Correct.
Yep.
Right. That's the Venus and Aries. But the Venus and Aries wants the slim type. They want an athletic woman. They want a woman that has some gumption, some get up and go, some drive and ambition. That's what he likes. So when you see or hear that he makes these, proclamations about women, keep in mind that he's speaking from what he likes. It's not personal. It's not something bad or good. It just is what it is. That's it. So, you know, my Venus is in a sign. This brother's Venus is in a sign, right? We all have what we like. Venus is what you like.
Yeah.
I hate to tell you, some men like women that are a little bit less athletic and more on the voluptuous side. Some men like that. So, ladies, don't feel so slighted when Kevin approaches it from that perspective. But he is correct in the sense of health. You should be healthy. Right? Not to say you should be, Coke bottle shape and, size this and size that. But if you're healthy, that's the most important thing. Right? Being obese is not healthy. Eating unhealthy foods, not taking care of yourself, not exercising, not doing the things to elongate your life through better health is a serious problem. And in the Black community, it is a very rampant issue when it comes to Black women.
Yeah.
Right? Black men too. Right? We don't go to the doctor. We don't like to go get checkups. Women are more health oriented and more health conscious than men. But many times I see a lot of Black women, they're overweight. Right? Unhealthily so. Not, because certain women can be built in a certain way. Not everybody's going to be a size 4 or size 6. That's a given. But if you're healthy, that's the most important thing. After that, right, really, it's really not much of a conversation. But
Yeah.
health is extremely important, and I agree with him on that note. Right. Um, again, Mary's is taken very serious with Aries. Aries is a warrior. They don't play. Right? Put up or shut up. Right? Do what you got to do or get off the pot. Right? That's how Venus and Aries operates. Now combine that with Venus and Saturn conjoined. Now you see a lot more. Right? Because now Saturn is in Aries, and Saturn in Aries, what it's gonna do is gonna be rough. Right? It's gonna be rough. It's not gonna be candy coated for you. Right? Saturn in Aries can make someone uncouth, right? Rough around the edges, impatient to some degree,
Yeah.
persistently so. Right? So when he talks, know that the package is part of this is part of his package. It's designed to literally be short circuited from 0 to 60, meaning that in dealing with the opposite sex, he's going to be very, very direct, very much to the point where he's going to say things that are tactless. Right? I hate to say it, Kev, it can be tactless. Right? Not to say there's, sometimes it needs to be less tactful to get the point across. I get it. I'm not shooting the messenger. Right? But at the same time, just understand that this is how an individual being built, this is how they're going to function. They're unrefined when it comes to the delivery. Not going to be refined. Saturn in Aries is about the opposite of unrefinement. Remember, Saturn is debilitated in Aries. Saturn is the
Yeah.
planet of deliberation, forethought, right? Taking your time. That's not who he is. So stop getting your feelings so hurt, because now you can hear the message, eat the meat and spit out the bones. Because now
Yeah.
you know who you're dealing with. Now you know this person is coming from this perspective. He's built that way. Don't expect for someone to come as you would, because you're not built as he is, and vice versa. He wouldn't, I'm sure, sit down, have a personal conversation. He wouldn't expect for you to come as he does. On his platform, whatever he says, that's his platform. But in a personal relationship, personal conversation, right? A little different, but nonetheless, he's going to be very to the point. They don't beat around the bush. So, these are some of the placements that makes him who he is. Right? And it's not a bad place. It's not, these are things that we need maybe to be said. A lot of men don't want to say these things, because a lot of it's not to say we're scared, but dealing with the most powerful being in the universe other than yourself. Because I'm God, she's goddess. But the black woman's powerful. She's had to be. She's had to be the backbone of the black community for the past 400 years. Not to say that's her position. She shouldn't have to be. But unfortunately, we've been through a situation that has placed us at the fingertips of someone, of an oppressor that created systems to keep us separated.
Yeah.
So Kevin's right. It's time to get back to some of that old time stuff where we lock arms and say, you know what, good, bad, or indifferent, let's do this. Right? Let's push forward. We're gonna have problems. That's a part of the life. Let's get through it. Because we did some of those things. I think some of our marriages we'd see some of the issues that we have as things that are really not our problem. That, when you argue about money, for example, right? If you're not, and I'm saying high value man, an average man, right, and an average woman shouldn't be arguing about money, because we both are contributing to the table. Now, of course, every situation is different. You got you got fingerprints for everybody. So I don't want to put everybody in one basket, but for the most part, money shouldn't be something we break up over.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is something that we need to really, really start to take serious note of if we think we're going to have children and grandchildren that are going to be able to make it in this world as far as being in committed relationships. And so with that, right, I'm going to leave it at that because we've covered a great deal with Mr. Samuels. We've covered the moon in Sag, which gives him his overall general preachy and teacher like disposition. We've talked about the sun in Aquarius, which gives him the intellectual approach and the scientific kind of purview that he comes from, and also gives him his dogged persistence. Right? We've talked about Mars in Scorpio, which gives him the intensity, the passion, and the drive, and also discipline when it comes to utilizing sexual energies. We've covered Venus and Aries, talking about the competitive spirit in unions and relationships, also that he likes athletically shaped and thinner women. We've talked about Venus conjunct Saturn, where he is actually seriously dedicated to making sure that relationships are long term commitments. We've talked about Saturn in Aries, gives him his rough, kind of brash disposition, right? And we've even talked about those conjunctions as a whole in continuation of how those things play out when he deals with the opposite sex. So I think we've done, Kevin, a pretty good right breakdown for what we have, right? Kevin, if you're out there, brother, holler at me, right? Because we definitely can tighten you up on the rest of your chart, provided we get the time of birth.
Indeed. Indeed. Yeah, man. That's it's good to provide some context and stuff like that. And that's what the purpose of the science is and whatnot. It's always a method to someone's madness and different things like that. So yeah, man, definitely dig into this, not just for Kevin, but for your own chart and the people around you, indeed,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
whatnot.
Take stock, right? Take stock. You don't have to have a time of birth to have good information about a person. The time of birth just unlocks everything in the positioning that it is to give you the details to read destiny. But we can see proclivities, habits, right? We can see insensitivities and tactlessness with Saturn and Aries. You can go through all those placements and find that person. You just don't know how it plays out, right? That's what the time gives us. But nonetheless, use this methodology. Check out people around you, people that you don't have a time of birth, but it's okay. Right? You still can see a great deal and learn a great deal about the character and nature of the person you're dealing with, and also teach them about themselves and what they bring to the table. So by far, right, I think this has been a very good podcast.
Absolutely. Great start to season 4 and whatnot, you know. But with that being said, this episode was brought to you by Pushing Forward Media Group, Caliprucia Astrology, and our good people over there on Patreon. Big up to y'all. We're gonna start doing some things on Patreon. Schedule something. Overall, I just want to create a space where we can interact with each other and kind of share where we're at and different things that we may not talk about on the podcast and stuff like that. So definitely stay locked into that. We got some stuff coming up this week for sure. Indeed. Brother Rob, before we get out, you got anything you want to share with people?
Yeah, just glad to be back. We're gonna have some great content for you this season. A lot of gems. Stay tuned, right? Stay vigilant with us because you're gonna enjoy this season. Trust me. If you don't tune in, you're gonna miss out.
Absolutely. Indeed. So, like always, I want to thank you all for tuning in, and we will be back next week, same time, same place, another banging episode. We're out. Peace.
Peace.